So my point is that you and I probably have no argument whatsoever up until the war of northern aggression.
See, I disagree with that term, because there's always disagreement.
Yeah.
I call it a war of federal aggression.
Okay.
Because the northern states lost the war too. They were nationalized. They lost the war. All states lost the war. It was a war between federal authority and state authority.
Okay.
I mean, that's a nuance. I just thought
That's okay, and that's fine.
My personal.
I agree with your nuance. So, if you look at it, Jefferson said that where powers are assumed which have not been delegated, a nullification of the act is the rightful remedy. That every state has a natural right in cases not within the compact to nullify of their own authority all assumptions of powers by others within their limits, etc., etc. So, again, whether you call it the war of northern aggression or the war or federal aggression, the result is really the same. Up until that point, there was a general agreement that the people of the states and the states themselves had the authority to say no to the federal government. At that point, there is some discussion and disagreement about what the 14th Amendment actually means. You have read, in the course of your presentation, a lot of quotations from a lot of people in that era and subsequent to that era, and I would sort of liken that to a lot of commentary that we hear all the time. That we hear commentary about federal government, about things, people writing opinions, and just because they write opinions doesn't necessarily mean that that opinion is a valid or correct opinion. So when you quote law books and lawyers and things like that from the era of the early 1900s, you know, I again can quote people from the same era who totally disagree, and of course I will. So the final question then is whether the 14th Amendment really gives dual citizenship or whether it really doesn't. And so when you said, and I'm just going to read that one little segment here, where is that here? If I can find it. Ah, yes. Legal scholars will argue that the 14th Amendment changed all that and incorporated the Bill of Rights into the states, and that rests on a misunderstanding of the actual intent of the 14th Amendment. The amendment was actually drafted to constitutionalize the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Many feared that future Congresses would overturn the act, granting the basic rights of citizenship to newly freed slaves if those rights weren't enshrined in the Constitution. So the 14th Amendment was the result of their efforts because it gives privileges, certain enumerated privileges and immunities. Okay? So those are people who say that the 14th Amendment did not confer that. What it said is you were a citizen of the United States and of the state in which you reside, and that was sort of like a dual citizenship proposition where for those, when it came down to those privileges and immunities, they could not be taken away, but specifically the 14th Amendment did not do away with the other rights privileges guaranteed you by the Constitution. So that really is the point of argument about what the 14th Amendment does. And you're going to say something else, I'm sure.
Oh, I might have a thing or two. You said the 14th Amendment was to incorporate the Civil Rights Act. Civil Rights Act of 1866. It was vetoed by Andrew Johnson on March 27, 1866. And the Civil Rights Act of 1866 is what created the United States citizenship status. Okay, and I actually have on my iPhone or my phone here. It's an Android. Shouldn't call it an iPhone. That's not good. I've got Andrew Johnson's veto on here, so I thought this might come up. And because the issue is, was the 14th Amendment about black citizenship, giving them rights and things of this nature. In Andrew Johnson's veto of March 27, 1866 of the Civil Rights Act, which Dr. Dan said the 14th Amendment was designed to incorporate into the Constitution, and it was passed. Well, it was said right there. But it says here, by the first section of the bill, all persons born in the United States and not subject to any foreign power, excluding Indians and not taxed, are declared to be citizens of the United States. Now again, what I want to do is say, was the original intent of the Civil Rights Act, 14th Amendment, about blacks, freed blacks? Okay. He says this provision comprehends the Chinese of the Pacific states, Indians subject to taxation, and people called gypsies, as well as the entire race designated as blacks, people of color, Negroes, mulattoes, and persons of African blood. Every individual of these races born in the United States is by the bill made a citizen of the United States. It does not purport to declare or confer any right of citizenship, any other right of citizenship than federal citizenship. It does not propose to give these classes of persons any status as citizens of states. So again, it says the power to confer the right of state citizenship is just as exclusively with the several states as the power to confer the right of federal citizenship is with Congress. Congress has the right to confer who they say are citizens. This is Congress. The Civil Rights Act is Congress changing who citizens are. Now there's some confusion in the wording of the 14th Amendment that Dr. Dan brought up. Is it says that you're a citizen of the United States and of the state wherein you reside. Okay? So that says, hey, we get to still keep state citizenship. Let's look at this. What is the state you reside in composed of? National citizens. It doesn't have that same status of people in there. There are two states, two different body politics. Now, which flag do you fly? This is North Carolina. This is the flag of the original state of North Carolina. This is the flag today. This flag is composed of the freemen of North Carolina. So being a state citizen in this, you have the status of a freeman of a state. This is the flag of the state of North Carolina today, composed of United States citizens. Well, now you're a citizen of the state of United States citizens who don't have the rights, aren't a party to the Bill of Rights. If you'll go and look up on the internet or wherever you want, Wikipedia, law books, something called the Incorporation Doctrine. The Incorporation Doctrine is the Bill of Rights was originally a limitation on the federal government of what it could do to the states. Okay? But once they nationalized the states, what did we do with this Bill of Rights? Well, over the years, through the Incorporation Doctrine, slowly the Bill of Rights have been incorporated to where United States citizens, this nationalized citizen status, could start saying, hey, these are rights that the federal government can't pass against me. But not all of the Bill of Rights have been put into the Incorporation Doctrine yet, because it takes the court cases to try to get it put into place. So again, that's just further evidence that these state citizens, these states composed of United States citizens, are not parties to the Bill of Rights. They have to fight. And again, just because, where do the rights of a United States citizen come from? They don't believe in God. It comes from the will of Congress. And they can be changed at the whim of Congress. Dr. Dan says he doesn't, that I've taken I've gone and looked at certain individuals, certain people, and I've got certain statements to push my argument through. Well, I would say, we also have to look at just evidence. I brought in the evidence of all the foundational Supreme Court cases. Which ones were for black civil rights? Which ones were the exercise of nationalization? Think of Roe versus Wade. Originally, prior to the Reconstruction Act, prior to this nationalization of citizenship, United States citizenship status, could Texas say abortion's illegal and New York say, well, we say abortion's legal? Could they do that? Yeah, they can do whatever they want to within their own borders. Could the federal government say anything about it? Because Texans said, we say it's illegal, and New Yorkers said, we say it's legal. Well, what happens when you change everyone to a United States citizen? Okay? And a United States citizen is said, they have a right to an abortion in Texas. And then New York says, well, we say abortion's illegal. Well, is New York composed of United States citizens? Yeah. United States citizens in all the states have a right to abortion. Bam, state rights, gone. Dead. Gay rights, same thing. Prayer in school, same thing. Display of 10 Commandments, same thing. If a United States citizen residing in one state has a right They have that right throughout the whole country. That's the perfect example of the nationalization of citizenship. We don't have a right to say abortion's illegal. We don't have a right to say we want to put prayer back in school. We don't have a right to say we want the display of the Ten Commandments. We don't. That's the nationalization. So what you got to do is you got to look at the evidence of what is actually being employed against us. Is there any evidence that we have the rights associated with states' rights, that we have the rights associated with what our founders put into place? I say there is no evidence of it. It's only our own desire. We just hope that's the case. But we can't find any evidence of it, and when we go back and look at these people, we say the original intent of all these people is to subjugate all American people. Now I'm going to give you a heads up. If you want to be smart and show your friends how much you know and how you can see into the future, the European Union is very similar to how the American Union was originally. It's a union of sovereign states that have compacted together economically. They have a common currency. They treaty economically as a body. And I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to start trying to getting rid of state sovereignty. That you got to give up some of your state sovereignty because of the economic situation. And they're going to start putting into place in Europe what they did here in the United States with the subjugation of the American people. It's going to happen. Okay? They learn from our history.
Well, again, okay. I'm going to make one comment, and then I think we ought to move the discussion a little further along. You're familiar with John Bingham, one of the writers of the 14th Amendment?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I am.
All right. He said, "The care of the property, liberty, and the life of the citizen under the solemn sanction of the oath imposed by your federal constitution is in the states, not in the federal government. I have sought to effect no change in that respect in the Constitution of the country." So, one of the chief writers of the 14th Amendment had no intention whatsoever of altering that relationship between citizens and their states. But, you know, in making this discussion right now between the two of us, which is, of course, a very friendly discussion because we really, he talks a lot more than I do, but his heart is in the right place as is mine. The point really is, regardless of how we got to the point where we are right now, the real question is, what do we do at this point to reverse the situation so that we can maintain our rights as free individual citizens? So, can we use and should we use nullification at the state level to try to retain rights? What will happen to us if we do? Take, for instance, states now that have written laws to nullify any challenge to the Second Amendment. The federal government obviously is not going to be happy about that. They will use economic blackmail to try to prevent us, as they have with Obamacare. They will use economic blackmail to try to keep the states in line. So, what do you think is going to happen if the states stay firm and say, I'm not going to be blackmailed by you, okay? We have our rights, the citizens of our states have our rights under the original Constitution. We're not going to give in. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, didn't South Carolina just say they're not going to allow Obamacare to be implemented?
Well, what they said is they're not going to set up the exchanges, and various states have come up with various different ideas about what they're going to do. But the real question is whether John is correct about the 14th Amendment or not. The bottom line is that people, up until the Civil War, I think we both agree that nullification was the rightful remedy. I don't think there's any question about it. You agree with that?
Yeah, for state citizens of legitimate states.
Of legitimate states. Up until the war of federal aggression. You see, you convinced me. But up until that time, yes, the state, and that's why, to me, secession was a completely rightful remedy of the state. The state of South Carolina said, wait, we're out of here. Just like in the example that I gave you, if you have 5 companies get together and they form, or if even 5 individuals get together and make a contract, when that contract is broken, then those individuals can withdraw from the contract. There may be legal ramifications about how you get out, but nevertheless, once the deal is broken, the parties to the deal can leave and exit. So we're all in agreement about that.
Let me interrupt right now, if you don't mind. Can we move to the questions from the audience?
Yeah, let me get
just
one thing real
the
quick.
The point I'm making is now is the time to bring in the discussion from the audience, because what I want to know is, regardless of whether the 14th Amendment is the way John says it is, or the way other people say it is, or me, or whatever, the real question is, what do we do now to exercise, to retain and maintain our rights that were given us, protected by the Constitution, really, not given us by the government, but protected by the Constitution.
Yeah, one thing, there's a couple things I want to is John Bingham.
You don't like John?
Well, do you believe that those politicians were honest back then? Or are they trying to push through a concept and make it sound good, like what we relate to today? I wouldn't take that quote as having any, I wouldn't take the quote of a politician.
Well, the point is, you also gave quotes of politicians, and I would say...
And lawyers, and the United States Supreme
I
Court.
would take them all
and
with
commentaries,
the same pound of salt.
and public education books.
Right? So the point is, the obvious point is that they have all been lying to us.
There was something you had. You had a good quote that I want to address.
This is really good if he's going to look at my notes.
I'm always looking at notes. I don't think it was
Is
a highlight
that
page.
how you got through college?
There's some quotes here. I didn't get through college. I'm not as smart as you guys. I think that might be it. Yeah, right here. It says if the federal government gets to define the extent of its own authority, the federal government possesses unlimited power, leaving the people defenseless and without remedy. But when that government exercises power, it was never meant to have. And I say that's what Reconstruction did. That is what they did, is they didn't have that power. Now, did they have lawful authority to annul states and to repopulate them? Well, no. So is that what we need to nullify? To me, we've got to get back to states of people who have a right. The original North Carolina Constitution, hang on, the original North Carolina Constitution, this is an agreement with you. Very first sentence says, whereas allegiance and protection are in their nature reciprocal, the one of right should be refused when the other is withdrawn. And this deals with the fundamental concept of how the people relate to government. It's a reciprocal agreement. The people give allegiance and support to a government in the form of taxes in return for the protection of rights. And whenever one side breaks the contract, this is going to your thing, then it is the right of the people to, they're absolved from it. Okay? And that's my issue, is the government has ceased. How many people here feel that the government is continuing to protect the rights of the American people as put in place by the founders? Okay? They violated it. Okay? So what is the remedy? The remedy is for the people to say, this is violated. Well, but we don't want to just go into a vacuum. We've got to say, well, where's our legal remedy? Who has lawful authority to exercise jurisdiction over this soil? The freemen of North Carolina, organized under the Constitution of December 18th, or United States citizens? I say the state out here is still a usurpation. I don't want to participate in it. But if we want to get lawful, if we want to stand on a solid, legal, constitutional foundation, we give our oath of allegiance to the original North Carolina Constitution, resurrect that body politic, and then challenge the federal government with all the stuff we were showing of the unconstitutionality of Reconstruction and say, prove that the war was lawful, prove that Reconstruction was lawful, and you'll get us back on board. Again, I declare myself a citizen of North Carolina, the original state. I am not a United States citizen residing in this state. I don't vote in this state. The last person I voted for president was Ross Perot. That's the last election I participated in. Because this government is for the government of United States citizens. It's not the government for the free people of this country. It's not the government for them. It doesn't represent the free people of this country. The free people of this country have to find out where their body politic went to, where their laws are, where their state is, say, you know what, I'm going to participate over there.
John,
We
I'm
have a
gonna
right to do that.
Cut you off there.
Okay.
I'm going to give you 2 minutes to rebut, and then we're going to have the audience ask questions.
There's really not a necessity so much to rebut. But I think the question is that what John is proposing is a lengthy and extensive legal battle, which may or may not be won. I do not really believe that we have that kind of time in this country to take on that kind of battle. I think that we have the urgency of the situation in this country is such that we should discuss what remedies we have that are useful and can meet the urgency of the situation. That's what I have to say about it.